W gang, welcome to a new vlog. I just wanted to hop on really quick and say thank you guys for tuning in for the 3-part interview series. It has been a pleasure and so informative to interview 3 people on the topics of consent in their respective therapy field. And I just look forward to bringing more people together for important conversations like this, because this is the real work. So I hope you guys enjoy this segment, and I'll see y'all in the next vlog. Bye. Welcome to Coffee and Consent, everybody. My name is Nadia. I'm just gonna do an introduction because there's a new face here. Most of you already know me, but I'm Nadia again, and Create Consent Culture started as a support group when I went to Central. Basically just dealing with survivorship. So me and Christina at the time felt like we needed a place on campus to process things that we had experienced. And so we created a space for women to come once a week to just deal with life after trauma. So I'm very passionate just about consent education, sex education, which is why Miss Sierra's here. And so this brand is literally like a baby to me, something that's just super important to me. And so we're here to just share space and talk about important things. So today I'm going to be interviewing Sierra, and I'll let her start by giving her name and her credentials.
Hi, I'm Sierra, or C, either one is totally fine with me. I am a licensed clinical social worker, sex therapist, sex educator. I practice individual couples group therapy in North and South Carolina right now. Do events and workshops and things of all that sort, and also get to support some other professionals, whether therapists or in other fields, who just want to take a little better care of the folks that they work with in terms of sexual health and wellness or relationships.
All right, so one of our another person I interviewed recommended Sierra, so shout out to Steph. And I feel like sexual education is just as important as consent, because I feel like in order for us to lead the future, we need to give them a outline of like what's important and why it's important. And so I want to know like, what is your background and what specifically drew you to this profession?
Yeah. So you want the professional version or the personal version?
Let's do personal.
Okay. So I'm also a survivor. The way I describe it on my website, so I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. My family dynamic was complicated and dysfunctional, to put it mildly. That's an understatement. And I, similarly to kind of what got you started, is just feeling like we're not having the conversations that we need to have, and just really thinking about what I could have used as a child, as a teenager, as a college student, the kind of support I could have used, the kind of information I could have used. So I've always been really intrigued by sexual health and reproductive health, and knew that I wanted to do something related in this field. At one point I wanted to be a doctor. And, I was like, oh, I'm going to be an OBGYN or a midwife. That's a lot of school. So that's changed my mind about that. And then I decided I wanted to be a therapist. I thought I wanted to be a children's therapist because, again, thinking about what I could have used or what I needed. And then as I got older, I started thinking maybe if more adults went to therapy, less children would need therapy. And so kind of switched my focus to wanting to work with adults. So that kind of bleeds into the professional version. But personally, it's just, I knew what not having good sex ed looked like and how that could impact people, and so I wanted to do my part to change that.
That's a good segue into one of the topics that we had at one of our very first Coffee and Consent. And it was, what was your first experience or time getting the birds and bees conversation, or if you've ever had one?
So I was in Barnes and Noble with my mom. I'm a reader. I've always loved to read. We were in Barnes and Noble, and we walked past this book. It was like the American Girl book. It was called like The Care and Keeping of You or something like that. My mom picked that book up. We went home. She put it on my bed,
That was it.
and that was that. That was the most talk that I ever got until maybe my senior year of high school when I decided I wanted to be on birth control. I was grown enough to make that decision by myself, but not so grown because I had to ask my mom for the phone number to the doctor's office to call and make the appointment. I was like, I don't need her to make this appointment. I just need her to give me the number. And she was like, if you're making this decision because someone is pressuring you, like, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Like, you can wait. And like, about 3 months too late for this conversation. Like, I just don't want to get pregnant my senior year of high school. Like, that's it, girl. And that was it. Like, those 2 moments is the most talk I received.
Similarly, I definitely feel like thinking back, I don't know if I had that formal conversation. It was more like, don't bring no babies home.
They got that all the time.
Don't go off to college and have a kid. And I'm like, that's not my plan.
Yeah.
But, and I just feel like, I think I could have had a better understanding of like how to build a sexual relationship if I was talked to about it, and especially experiencing trauma at the age of 17. It kind of molded some of my thoughts early on about like how sex would go or like how I could build healthy intimacy, and so. I feel like I wish I would have had more opportunities to have those conversations with my parents, opposed to just like experiencing life first. So another question that I have is, how do you build rapport with your clients?
Yeah, my approach is I always tell my clients in the first session, I want to learn about you as a person. I already know a little bit about why they're coming to see me. I want to know, who are you? So yes, maybe you want to talk about sex or you want to talk about your relationship, and we absolutely will. But I also want to know, how is work going and how's your relationship with your family, because all of those things impact each other. And I'm very, like, it literally says on my website that I'm a survivor, because I don't want people wondering, like, do you get it? Can you relate? Is it something that I can really talk to you about? So I lead with authenticity. I tell my clients, you can ask me anything. I will either answer or tell you why I'm going to decline to answer. But either way, I'm not going to lie to you or give you a fake answer or anything like that. And usually if I'm declining to answer, it's because I don't mind telling you my business, but I don't want to tell other people's business.
Right.
And so that's really my approach, is just to be myself, because I want to work with people who feel like I am a good fit for them. It makes all the difference.
And then, how important would you say consent is in your field in general?
It is. I tell people the only 2 rules that I have when we're talking about your sex life. I'm not here to tell you what it should look like or should be like. I only have 2 rules: consent and pleasure. Everybody's in agreement with what's happening, and everybody's having a good time. Anything after that, have at it. And so, it is, for me, it is very foundational, because if it's not consensual, we're not talking about sex. We have other words for that. Sex is consensual. So it is the foundation of everything I do.
I was telling you about this earlier, but I think one of my biggest passions is just like teaching children about consent, because I have the belief that if we're teaching children about consent at a young age, they'll be able to build healthy boundaries. And my good friend Abby has a daughter that's 2 years old, and we always joke about how great her boundaries are, even as a 2-year-old. And so being a friend that has being a person that has a lot of friends with kids, I put that in my mind that, I want to practice consent with the young ones, because they need to have the ability to say no. And they shouldn't be forced to give you a hug or sit on your lap or give you a kiss. And so when I'm interacting with her kid or any of my other friends' kids, I'm like, can I have a hug today? And if she's like, no, then I'm like, okay, that's fine. And sometimes she'll tell me, I don't want to hug you, or I don't want to speak to Dia today. And so I think that that's like a sweet spot for me, being able to kind of like shape young people's minds so that we can grow to have like a culture of consent, which is like a lot of the reason why I brought this brand to life, because I feel like being able to, I don't know, like learning how to like enforce boundaries has been something very hard for me, especially as like a people pleaser. And so I feel like I get all my power back by teaching others about why consent is important. So I was just wondering, what are some examples of like how a session will go when someone is coming to see you, or like how are the ways that you're getting these people as clients?
Yeah, the number one therapist answer is it depends. But that is really true. So sometimes people have found me on Instagram. People have like just been Googling sex therapists and found me, or get recommended to me by someone else. And usually when they find me, and I do a free 15, 20-minute consultation just to see, like, can I help you with what you're wanting help with? And so many times people are like, I didn't even know this was a thing. I've been trying to talk to, I'm already in therapy and I'm trying to talk to my therapist about it, but maybe they seem a little uncomfortable, or they recognize like, okay, this isn't really my specialty area. And it's like, I just need a space where I can just talk about these things and ask these questions, you know, shame-free, judgment-free, and get some support around it. So it could be anything from folks who also have a history of trauma and are trying to figure out, how do I still have, you know, healthy, thriving, intimate relationships with these experiences and the ways that this has impacted me. Folks who are wanting to improve sex in their relationships, like, we used to have sex all the time, and now one or both of us just isn't really feeling it, doesn't really want to, and we're trying to get that spark back, or, you know, things aren't functioning the way that they used to, and we're trying to navigate that. I work with a lot of couples who are in some stage of non-monogamy, either like we're thinking about opening our relationship, or we've been non-monogamous for a while, and, you know, we're hitting some bumps in the road and trying to navigate that. Folks who are exploring their sexual orientation or gender identity and just want some supportive space to do that. So anything sex, sexuality, relationships, for the most part, I can usually help with. And if it's something that I'm like, oh, you might need some attention or some care that I can't provide, I have a pretty good network of folks. I usually know someone to send them to.
Another thing that came to mind when I was thinking about like all the things that I would ask a sex therapist is, what do you feel like is the most common perceived thing about you being a sex therapist? So I know that in the past when I've talked to someone about the fact of interviewing a sex therapist, they feel like, oh, well, like, what is that? Like,
yes. People assume I'm watching people have sex. I am not. I'm not seeing nobody with their clothes off or anything like that. We are talking about your sex life. I may give you some suggestions or things to practice on your own or with a partner, but I am not there when the practicing is happening, and I'm not seeing any of that. People assume, usually I say I'm a sex therapist, and people are like, oh, you must have the best sex life in the world. I'm like, I mean, I think it's pretty great, but not just because I'm a sex therapist, like, because it still takes work and effort, and, you know, I don't think that sex necessarily is something that is just supposed to automatically be easy. Something that's so important, it's like, we don't think anything else that is so important should just be easy, and we shouldn't have to think about it. Those are probably the biggest ones.
I actually was reading this book, and it was called Hot and Bothered, How to Get the Sex That You Desire. And I thought the book was really interesting because it was written by a sex therapist. And just reading it.
Something with the vibe?
I have the book with me, but I'll share it with you afterwards. I can't think of the author, but one of the things that I found shocking when I was reading it was just like how she was describing that most people that come to her are basically saying, you know, they don't know where to start when it comes to their pleasure, and they just like don't have the language. And so I feel like being able to communicate and understanding consent gives you the language to then be able to transfer it into platonic relationships and romantic.
Yes. A lot of times if I'm like, okay, what do you like? What do you enjoy? A lot of times I'm like, I have no idea. Yeah.
And I definitely feel like we live in a world where there are too many women not having orgasms, just because they don't even, or they have shame even to talk about it. And so I feel like I just commend like you being in the sex therapy world, because I feel like there's so many things and so many layers to like sex that we just don't talk about. And I think that it creates a lot of shame and guilt when we could be having more pleasure.
Absolutely, and that's my goal. And I'm like, orgasm or not, I want people to enjoy the sex that they're having. Like, if you want to have orgasms, I want that for you too, and I want you to just enjoy the sex that you're having. Like, I want more people to have pleasure. I want it to be a daily experience.
So I was wondering, what are some of the most common reasons that people come to you? So like, do you have one that's higher than the other? Like, I know you expressed how some people find you.
Yeah, it kind of varies. Like, I tend to find myself in like seasons. Like right now, these last couple of months, I've been seeing a lot of couples who are just like, something in their relationship is not working, and they want some support around that. There was a period of time where I was seeing a lot of women in particular who were experiencing like pain during sex, and wanting some support around that. So that's a common one I see. Or just like don't have the desire for sex anymore. Sometimes it's just like life has changed, 2-3 kids later, 12 years into the relationship, it's like it just doesn't feel fun anymore. It's just not something I look forward to. It feels like a chore at this point. So those are some pretty common ones. Usually when I'm working with men, because I do work with a good bit of men as well, it's usually like some performance anxiety, like they're very in their head, and all these ideas of what men and their sexuality is supposed to be like, and they're battling that, or having trouble with erections, and a lot of times they specifically want to meet with a woman because it kind of reduces some of that shame for them. Those, I would say, I tend to go in and out of like seasons of seeing more people with some of those concerns.
And then earlier, before we got started, you told me about starting in like the high school sex education. So I was wondering if you could just kind of share more about your experience doing that, or like what led you to do that.
What led me to do that was rent was due, and it was the first job offer I got after grad school, and I was like, great, it's in a realm of things that I'm interested in, so let's do it. And I really enjoyed it, especially because the students that I was working with, they were not shy about asking the questions. They're like, this is what I'm curious about, here are my challenges, and I can't have these conversations with my parents, or but I really want answers to these questions. And so I really enjoyed getting to be one of the people that maybe planted some seeds, and we talked a lot about consent and what it looks like in sexual context and non-sexual context. North Carolina does not make sex education in schools easy. The curriculums that tend to get approved are very fear-based, honestly. Like the one we used was designed in the 90s. So before we knew much about HIV, besides it was killing people. So it is very like heavy on like fear around HIV and that sort of thing. So we had to do some tweaks and trying to make it a little more updated and more relevant. There are certain topics that we couldn't bring up unless a student asked about it. Like we couldn't really bring up abortion unless students asked about it. We couldn't really mention Planned Parenthood unless students kind of brought it up. So it was challenging navigating like the politics of that, but I really enjoyed just hearing what the students cared about and what their questions were. It was fun.
I definitely can think back to sex ed in high school, and I only remember hearing about diseases. Like I don't think that I got anything from it other than learning that there were diseases and you will die.
And you'll die, yeah.
like very fear-based. And so that kind of leads into my next question of, how do you think that social workers, or everyone, because I feel like it's everyone's job, can improve sex education?
Yeah, I think it starts with us as individuals, educating ourselves. And it's like everyone doesn't have to be a sex educator, everyone doesn't have to be a sex therapist. You don't have to go to school and study these things for months and years to, pick up a couple of books or, think about, the shows that you're watching or the movies that you're watching. How are they approaching sex and how they're talking about it? Is that the model that you want for the children in your life? Or, of course you can't control those things, but you can have some conversations about like, what's happening, what things are like in real life, that sort of thing. Just taking some ownership of, it's so easy to say like, oh, this generation, this, and that, or this next generation, this, and that. It's like, well, who's raising them? And who's teaching them? And who's influencing them? And so that's one thing I try to be really mindful of. Like, am I doing my part to leave a world that like I want my kids and grandkids and great grandkids to live in?
Very true.
Yeah.
So my next question is, what issues related to sex therapy are you most passionate about?
Desire is definitely one, because especially for women, I just think the ways that we talk about it are not very helpful. So just helping women connect with what desire looks like for them, because it may not look like it looks for their partner or their friend or their aunt. Just really getting to know what desire, what pleasure looks like for you, what it feels like for you, what are your non-negotiables when it comes to pleasure. I'm also just really passionate about healthy relationships. Didn't see enough of those growing up. And so it's really important to me, because healthy individuals create healthy relationships, create healthy families, healthy communities, and it goes on and on and on from there. So really helping folks, understand the roles that they play in their relationships and, create relationships that they love and enjoy and are healthy.
So I have like two other questions for you, and one of them is, what 3 skills do you believe a good sex therapist must have?
I would say definitely being a lifelong learner, because I learn so much from my clients. It's like, I don't pretend that I know everything. I'm like, I know a lot, I don't know every single thing, and I'm not afraid to say I don't know that, and to go do my own research and not just put that burden on my client. Definitely healthy boundaries, because we're essentially modeling that for your clients. So respecting my own boundaries, respecting their boundaries, and having some just real honest conversations about that. Like, sometimes people are like, do you do weekend appointments? Like, I would really love to meet with you on a Saturday. And I'm like, I totally get that.
No, thank you.
I used to, and I have learned I am not my best. And if I'm not my best, you're not getting your money's worth. So I'd much rather you work with someone who is at their best on a Saturday, if that's really what you want and what you need. Let me see, a third thing. Fun. Like, just want, like, I think it's a field where you get to have fun. Like, I get to do cool stuff like this and like meet new people and do all sorts of things, and like sex should be fun. Talking about sex, I want it to be fun. So yeah.
And then my last question, which I feel like you kind of went into, was, what are the ways that you practice self-care, being a sex therapist and having to deal with so many people?
Yeah.
Sometimes just the emotional burden that it can be to hear other people's problems. How do you prioritize self-care for yourself?
Definitely healthy boundaries. I am getting better and better about it, about practicing what I preach. And so my time, I'm very protective of my time. And so, creating a schedule that works for me first, so that again, I can be at my best for my clients and they get the best versions of me. I am not my best self as a therapist at 7 o'clock in the evening. I've done it. I had jobs where I had to work that late. And when I started working for myself, I realized very quickly, it's like, I'm hungry and I'm ready to go lay down.
Okay.
So you're not going to get the best version of me, and that's not fair to you. I think pleasure should be a daily experience, and so I try to practice that myself. Like, finding the smallest moment. It might be eating some ice cream, reading a book, taking a walk, something where I'm like enjoying my life. Because it is hard. I do hear a lot of really hard things. And I am honored and considered a privilege that people trust me with those things. And it does get heavy. So I have to remember that, like, there are still things in life to, ways to experience joy and pleasure.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. And I just want to thank you for spending your time here. But I also wanted to open the floor for everyone to see if they had any questions that they want to ask.
Well, it's kind of an extension of what you're asking, but like, how do you handle getting triggered, like with a client? Because I'm asking both as like I'm interested in like for you specifically, and like as someone who also teaches, like I am trying to navigate that myself in regard to like being triggered in the moment and trying to navigate that.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yes, because it's like I can be in my therapist mode and I'm also still a person. I'm trying to think like, what do I actually do? Usually in the moment I'm just like, ooh, okay, let me breathe through that, and just thinking like, if that's hard for me to hear, how much harder is it that this is their experience and this is this is what's on their mind right now. So it's helpful for me to kind of just redirect back to what the client needs and what they're experiencing, and then that's where it's really important to have a good self-care practice, and I can process that on my own time. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just mad, like I'm just angry for my clients and the things that they experience and the things that they encounter, and I'm like, that's part of what makes me human. I don't ever want to be non-human in this work, and so I just acknowledge like, I am gonna hear some hard stuff, and so I know that my sweet spot is 2 sessions back to back. After that, I need at least a 30-minute break, because who knows what I've heard in just those 2 hours. Sometimes it's like everybody has great news today, and sometimes it's like the sky is falling for everybody today, and so building in some of those breaks to like decompress. I love a good shower in the middle of the day. It's just like, I need to restart because it's been a heavy morning. Let me just try this again. I'm starting my day over at 2 o'clock.
That's a good. Anybody else have a question?
Are you taking new clients?
Yes, question mark. So, depending on what hours or things like that folks need, yes. I do have like a teeny tiny wait list right now, just because I don't like taking more people than I can like reasonably schedule, and then it's like, you get to have 1 appointment, now you gotta wait a month for the next one. But I got some folks kind of transitioning, so I got, if you can catch me before the end of the year, you can probably slide in there. Don't tell nobody else that though.
I heard nothing.
Yes.
I heard nothing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about being a survivor, and I am too. And there's this thing I'm struggling with of like, okay, in my mind I've rationalized it, I've worked through it, I've gone through my therapist and all the things. Now it's actually time to get back into this physical aspect of actually getting into sex. And my body's like, no, you ain't worked through it yet. You think you have, but you haven't. And it's just like, what are some like tips or things that you have done to like help you? Like, you're okay, like you're good.
Yeah. 2 things can be true at the same time. It's like you've done a lot of work, and there might still be some work to do. I think healing is a lifelong process. It's been so many moments where I'm like, I'm good. I done worked through that. I talked about that, and then I got engaged, and I was like, okay, now this feels different. Like, I need to go sit on somebody's couch again. Like, this feels very different. Yeah, literally, I need to go call the lady because it's a lot going on. Thinking about when you do feel safe in your body, like when you do feel comfortable and present and at peace, and how can we incorporate more of that, and it's a gradual process, and it takes a lot of communication, a lot of trust, and so, patience with yourself, and hopefully partners that are able to be patient with you as well, and if not, then that is information. So just thinking about what does help you feel safe. For some people, it's like, I'm fine having sex, but I don't feel safe completely naked. It's like, okay, who said you got to be completely naked? Like, who said you got to have the lights on or off? Like, I only have 2 rules: consent and pleasure. We check those 2 boxes. Whatever else you need, have that. Yeah.
I would add to that and say, just also taking your time, because I feel like for me, I think one of the things that I struggle the most with during my like survivor journey is being comfortable in my body. And so I feel like the ways that I like call back my power to myself, I just started to soak up the moments when I actually felt good or felt sexual. And so that might not include being sexual with somebody else, but like putting on lingerie, taking pictures in my mirror, like just doing things to savor the moment that I'm feeling good, so that when it is time to do that, I can feel confident about it. So I would definitely say taking the time to like write body affirmations or sit in the mirror. And I feel like sitting in the mirror for me became a very powerful way to like feel grounded in my body.
Yeah, and that's part of what I mean when I say like pleasure as a daily practice. Like, it doesn't have to be sexual. It could just be like, I want to wear lipstick today. Yes, I'm just going to Target in a grocery store, but it's like, I want to wear lipstick. I want to wear heels. I want to do my makeup. Like, this is what I enjoy. I'm wearing this really nice, expensive perfume that I said I was going to reserve for special occasions. Well, the special occasion is Ross is having a sale. And so I'm putting this perfume on. You know, like, it's pleasure as a daily practice, because it helps rewire your brain to know that, oh, I get to have this and I deserve this, and, you know, making more space for that. And nobody else has to know, or, you know, it's like, you might have that cute pair of panties that you like, oh, this, I usually reserve this for special occasions or whatever. It's like, girl, it's Tuesday, whatever, at 11 a.m., put them drawers on. If that's what you like, do what you need to do for you. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions, comments?
I'm also a survivor, and I want to add in there, I feel like, just to put it out there, masturbation.
Oh yeah, true.
I really feel like, especially for females, I feel like that getting in touch with your body again so that you can enjoy it in the moment and not be reliving it or thinking it, but just be able to know that like you offer yourself that pleasure like on your own without someone else being a part of the equation. At least that's helped me.
Yeah.
Not that, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
I was
helped
thinking
me.
the same thing. And also part of it is like, I feel like masturbation also gives you like new memories, like with your body in that way. So
Yeah.
it's not just going to this one thing.
And it gives you so much freedom to just explore, because for some people it's like, you know, maybe being in the bed is like, that's going to be triggering. It's automatically taking your mind to a certain place. Like, I've had folks say that. It's like, every time I try to have sex with my partner in the bed, like, my mind just goes back here. And I'm like, well, you got a 3-bedroom house with a living room and bathrooms and, you know, all these, laundry room, whatever. Like, because again, there's only 2 rules. So it's like, whatever you need, you know, again, creating some of those new memories and just making some new associations with sex and safety and pleasure.
I think that's a lot with me too, because a lot of times I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm ready, and then right before my mind just like shuts off for some reason, and I just could not figure out why. And like you say, like I would talk to my therapist about it, but I think it was like a little out of what she was comfortable with in that aspect. But like you all have definitely helped me a lot, so thank you. But yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. Well, if there's no other questions, you have anything else you'd like to add or takeaways for someone that might be interested in sex therapy or
If you are interested in trying sex therapy, like as a client, absolutely go for it. If you are interested in being a sex therapist, absolutely go for it. You deserve pleasure. It's important. You are entitled to it. And practice it every day. At least once a day. Just one thing that you're doing just because you want to, or just because you like it, or just because you enjoy it.
all right. Well, thank you guys for being part of this conversation.